Must be getting somewhere, surely. Something's useless with this peculiar metal in the rock. Most similar to steel and composite, but not quite. This tunnel must lead to something or someplace. I must find Alice. Can't lose her too. Chand, I'm so sorry. What can I do? I have the whole of time and space at my disposal, but yet I can't go back and save my friend. Alice, where are you? What's that? Who's there?
An enormous harvest moon hung effortlessly in the early evening sky. Below it, ploughed fields framed by thick hedges stretched across the countryside as far as the eye could see. A young girl stumbled without direction along a narrow dirt track that ran alongside a field and a hedge. She was lost, but didn't care. Slung across her shoulder, a threadbare hemp bag bulging full of assorted items that she thought she'd need for her journey. As the moon rose, the sun set, and with the night came the cold. The young girl was now shivering. She stopped, opened the bag, and pulled out an oversized fleece that was actually her stepbrother's. Putting the garment on, she spotted a gap in the hedge and decided to crawl in. The opening was just big enough for her to sit within, and she rested herself down on the uneven broken twig and stone-covered dark, damp earth. Spiny, sharp branches stuck out above and from the sides of the hedge, making movement uneasy. She trembled and folded her arms in an attempt to keep warm, but the freezing late autumn evening ensured that it was a futile attempt. Her long red hair fell across her tear-stained face, and as she shook from the cold, she watched her breaths mist in front of her green eyes. The silence of her surroundings and the dire state of her situation led her to once again recall the events of that day. It had started well, a fine, fresh October morning, coming downstairs to find a steaming bowl of porridge with a spiral of honey on top made for her by her mother. In her 10 years of life, she'd always associated Saturday mornings with the smell of porridge being one of the 2 days of the week, the other reasonably being Sunday, that she got to spend with her mother. Her parents had separated before she was even born. Her father was from a well-to-do family and, upon her birth, had no problems in claiming custody over her, as her mother was at that time unemployed and without a permanent address. As much as she enjoyed the prosperity of life with her father, she could have anything she wanted. It was no substitute for the warmth and love she received from her mother. That morning they took the bus into town. It was busy as usual, and the young girl was delighted to see the town's Christmas lights being set up, hoisted between one side of the high street and the other. They made their way to the town's outdoor market, which took place every Saturday on the grounds in front of the town hall. The young girl loved the mixture of aromas that emanated from the various stalls. Fresh fish, bread, vegetables, cheese and incense all combining. The market was bustling, and the young girl felt herself being shoved from side to side as she held onto her mother's hand for dear life. She then became aware of a commotion, shouts and screams, and a high-pitched alarm echoing all around. She tried to look, but couldn't see through the sea of bodies in front of her. Suddenly, the crowd began to move and part, and in what seemed like a split-second blur, she found herself separated from her mother's hand and pressed into a crowd of strangers. She saw a flash of someone running past. The crowd was shouting. There was struggle and shrieks. A lifetime seemed to pass, but could only have been a few minutes. She could hear people shouting and the sound of sirens. It was only as she pushed her way through the throng that she saw her mother, lying on the cold pavement, her lifeless eyes staring wide back at her. She went to approach, tears welling in her own eyes, but got pushed back by someone. People were kneeling around her mother. They were trying to bring her back to life. A stream of blood reached the Velcro-fastened shoes that the young girl was wearing. Hours later, she was back with her father and his family. She had said nothing, just cried. She had heard talk about a robbery, a knife, a desperate criminal on the run, how her mother had been in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was easy to leave her father's house. No one noticed. They were all caught up in the drama. So away from the family farm she walked, across fields and fields, until she found herself in the hedgerow, with the events of the day replaying in her mind, and tears flowing down her cheeks. After some time she heard voices, shouts of her name, Alice, being called over and over again. She didn't move or make a sound, but eventually a man's face appeared at the opening of the hedge. She didn't recognise him, but his rugged features smiled at her. Alice awoke from what had been a peaceful sleep. Sitting up, she found that she had been lying on a bench in a park. Golden leaves dropped from tall trees and glided to the ground below, carried on a light but cold waft of wind. Alice swung her legs off the wooden seat. She was dressed for the weather in jeans, black boots, a thick green sweater, and was wrapped up in a yellow knee-length woolen coat. Her hair blew across her face as the wind speed picked up. Looking around, she saw people out strolling, kites being flown, dogs being exercised, and children enjoying themselves on the brightly painted swings, roundabouts and climbing frames in the play area. Beyond the boundaries of the park, she saw the city, London, rising up into the sky with its familiar landmarks greeting her. She smiled to herself and then yawned. She hadn't meant to fall asleep, but a week of long days and late nights studying for her history finals had taken it out of her. She checked her watch. She was shocked to see that she'd been slumbering for almost 2 hours. Yawning again, she jumped out of her skin as her mobile phone sprang into life, playing the annoying ringtone that she'd never quite got round to changing. "Hello?" she said, rubbing her eyes and once again yawning. "Babe, it's Chand." Alice rolled her eyes. "Hi," she muttered. "Where are you?" he asked. "Where am I?" she questioned, as if it was any of his business. "Yeah, you said you'd be back." "Yes, and I will," she replied, picking up a fallen leaf and examining it. "So you're still coming, then?" "Yes," she moaned, "if I have to." "You'll be doing me a favour." I know, helping you get your leg over." "Oh, don't say it like that," Chand whined, adding a malicious laugh. "Well, I'll be back soon." "Okay, I'll start getting ready," said Chand. "Ready? Bit early, isn't it?" questioned Alice, tearing the leaf apart. "Nah, I want to look my best." "So you're on your way?" "Yes, stop harassing me. I've said I've come to your stupid club." "Right, okay, see you soon." "Bye," Alice replied, closing the phone before Chand could respond. She shook her head, dropped the leaf, and stuffed the phone back into her coat pocket. As she stood up to make her way home, she noticed dark, menacing clouds had appeared, and instantly she felt cold and fearful. Then she was aware that she was alone in the park. Everyone had gone. She stood frozen to the spot, watching the grey clouds turn black, slowly feeling that an uncomfortable presence was behind her. It began to rain, and a crack of thunder sent a sharp shiver through her body, and she began to walk, quickening her pace at once. She knew something was following her, and it was closing in, but she was too afraid to turn and see what it might be. Fear gripped every part of her being, and her speed changed into a run. The rain was now pouring, soaking her to the skin, and as she ran, she finally dared to glance around. She saw to her horror that a black void, a mass of nothing but emanating pure evil, was closing in on her. As she scurried on, her phone began to ring again. Pulling it out from her pocket, the display was flashing Chand. She looked back to see the void about to envelop her. She started to scream in terror, screaming madly for help, but none came. Alice felt warm grains of sand under her hands, heard the sound of waves lapping at the shore, felt a warm breeze on her body. Examining her surroundings, she saw that she was now uncharacteristically dressed in a skimpy bikini and was sitting alone on a pure white coastline. The sun was bright and it was very hot. She was forced to cover her eyes as the sun shone brighter and brighter and brighter. "My eyes!" she cried. "My eyes!"